This is the pregnant silence pause.
Tell you how each individual position earns a commission, and I'll give you an example of a customer that they're very likely to help, and an example of a customer they're not so likely to help. So that way you understand as a customer who you need to talk to when you come to the dealership so that you have a better experience. So the first department I'm going to tell you about is the sales department, and this is the position I've held on to the longest. Now in sales, this is where you go in order to purchase a vehicle. So a good example of when you need to go to the sales department is, let's say you're taking a look online and you see a vehicle for sale that interests you, and you want to get to know more about that vehicle and possibly purchase that vehicle. A salesperson would be very likely to help you in that case. When they close the sale, they earn a commission based off of the profit generated between the sales price of the vehicle and the cost on that vehicle. Now, there's a lot of cases where there's not much profit in the vehicles that are sold. So if there's no profit or negative profit, which yes, it does actually exist, the salesperson earns a minimum commission or a mini to give your customer file to what's called the finance department, which is our second department that's customer facing. The finance department is the place where you go to obtain financing or funding for the vehicle, even if you're paying cash for it. The finance department doesn't just obtain the funding for the vehicle, they also do your licensing paperwork, and they offer additional protections that you can purchase with your vehicle. So how does the finance manager earn their commission? The finance manager earns their commission based off of the interest rate that's charged to the customer who's financing the vehicle, as well as any profit that's generated from the sale of those protections that I just mentioned to you. Now, if the customer chooses to pay cash for the vehicle, or if they choose not to purchase any protections, or some mix of both, then the finance manager will not get paid a commission, even if they do 45 minutes to an hour and a half worth of paperwork. Now, both the finance department and the sales department are overseen by sales managers. These sales managers are the people that are responsible for creating the finance proposals to begin with when the salesperson is selling the car. These sales managers, they also earn commissions, and their commission is going to be a portion of how the salesperson earns their commission, as well as any protections that the finance manager sells and interest rate that they charge to the customer. That's where the service department, our third department, comes into play. The service department does oil changes, tire rotations, they repair glass, and do various other repairs to keep your vehicle running in prime condition. Now guys and gals, contrary to popular belief, the service people are not hourly workers. They're commissioned salespeople. When they're suggesting a service that you need on your vehicle, the way they get paid more commission is for the number of hours that the service work that needs to get done to your vehicle takes. Now, most service departments would want to take this on if they think that it's a job that they can actually complete. The same position is with the parts department. Ironically, the parts department's biggest customer is the service department, because when the service department is doing service work on vehicles that come through for maintenance, parts needs to supply the parts that are necessary to complete those services. However, there are still a handful of customers that prefer to do their own work on their vehicles, and they'll just stop by the parts department, get whatever parts that they need, and go.
So that's pretty much it. I was having trouble finding a video that really went into compensation and how people should be compensated. I thought this was an interesting video where it really talked about, you know, why people want to talk to you versus not. I edited out the not because I thought it was kind of silly, but you know, clearly that's part of the issue with compensation. That it's a commission-based structure, but it may not make sense for the customer and the dealership, or even the employee. So I thought that was interesting. And Jeff and I had a conversation last night about parts departments, because both of us knew a little bit about it, but partsmen are generally an hourly employee, based on my understanding. So, or our understanding. Anyway, good morning. Let's see George again today. Why not?
We love to share this.
George Sandler, Stoneville, Toyota. I'm going to give away a secret, everybody. I'm going to let the cat into the bag. I'm going to show you my ace out of my sleeve. There it is. Are you ready for this? my special gentleman out in the wee west, in the wild west. My man Ian, my man Jeff, the AutoHub show people. These gentlemen are all about the customer experience. They're all about mentors. They're one of my mentors, people, gentlemen, Ian, Jeff. You're truly one of my mentors. You're mentors to me and hundreds of people across the car business, from the East Coast, the West Coast, the North Pole, the South Pole. I've been on your show all the way for free. Gentlemen, you're looking for the best of the best in the car business. You're looking for the best show in the business. The AutoHub show. The man Ian, the man Jeff. One man, one place. George says, Toyota.
Thanks, George, for the endorsement.
Yeah.
He's got to work on his camera shy problem. now.
Yeah, he's got a problem there. I tried to find some books on pay. It was a little bit challenging, being that there wasn't really a lot out there specifically for automotive, but there isn't even that much out there other than just strictly what I'd consider HR reference books. These are a couple I could find talking about compensation puzzles, talking about pay matters. I'm sure there's probably 20 about diversity and inclusion out there, but these are a couple that I could find. Obviously, developing some form of pay plan or pay structure for a business is very important. These are a couple of reference books that really get into that kind of detail. So if you're looking for that for any business, including an auto business, I think this would be a good place to start. So that was Solving the Compensation Puzzle, Pay Matters, and Compensation Sense 101. Most of these people work in the HR side of the business industry. Disclaimer, go ahead, Jeff.
One thing though, I do have to say, Ian, it's time that we, with these books that we promote, we reach out to the authors and say they need to pay us so we can tell people about their books.
Yeah.
Although John Latka, I got to tell you, when you publish your book, we won't charge you. Trust me.
Perfect.
So welcome everybody and thank you. We have our AutoHub rules of engagement here, which are basically this. The views of our speakers and guests are their views, not necessarily ours. And this is one of those cases when even though if we agree, we're going to say that they're not ours necessarily. And sometimes most of the time they're politically correct. Sometimes they're not, but just gets us off the hook. Also, anybody watching, if you got questions at any time, please use the chat box and mention your any questions that you have, and Ian or myself will bring them up while we're doing that. Last week, if you joined us, we had our beginning of the year show, the WTF Are You Doing With Your Lead show, and some great guests that are in that lead segment of the business. And of course, one thing that we had is a consensus that all this money that we spend on leads, we generally don't. We only follow up on a small portion of them. So it's very interesting. And today, of course, our topic is, does your pay plan suck? And it's a very interesting thing, great topic. We have three people that certainly know this very well. We have John Latka joined us from Automotive Business Solutions from the very, very, very almost eastern coast of North America, in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And we have Stephen Sweeney, who's closer to John in Halifax than he is to us here in Vancouver, joining us from the United Kingdom, even though his business is in the United States. And also Greg Cookson from Auto Careers Group, who both him and Stephen are in the recruiting end of business and certainly do understand and know the topic of pay plans. And I thank everybody for joining us. Gentlemen, thank you for guesting here, and we're looking forward to having a great, lively discussion. So without further ado, we'll get started. And the first question we have for everybody is, there are infinitely more pay plans than there are dealerships. And we all know that. And those of us in the car dealership, right in the front end of dealerships, know that some dealerships every year come up with a new pay plan, or sometimes 3-4 times a year, all based on the financial circumstances with the dealership. Dealerships are notorious for having a good year and saying, okay, let's cut commissions because they're making too much money. Do you feel that the time has come to reinvent compensation plans, especially for sales or management? And I'm actually going to start this with John, because I know that John is one of his products that he's very fervently works with dealers on is pay plan improvement. So John.
Well, I definitely believe that it's time for dealerships to review the manner in which they compensate the people in the sales department. When we look at commissions, if we're talking about, the customer experience and the employee experience, the challenge is that when we focus primarily on commission, who really benefits from that? Obviously, the dealer does, and ideally the salesperson, if in fact they're making sufficient profits. But the customer understands that the sad part of this relationship is that it tends to be one-sided. The dealer wants to make money, so does the salesperson. So how do we go about changing that? Well, in my experience, one of the interesting things is when it comes to hiring new people to the industry, many people are scared off because of the concept of commission pay. They have a difficult time trying to figure out how they're going to get into the industry and how are they going to be able to pay their bills. From that, in dealers that I worked with over the years, and their concern about being able to hire new people, I came up with a pay plan that's based on a number of factors. One of them is that when you hire someone for your dealership, you guarantee that they're going to make X amount of dollars per month. Now, what you put in place are some minimum standards of performance as expectations. So one of them would be, depending on the brand, of course, would be the volume per month that's expected of a salesperson as a minimum standard at the dealership. The other factors, of course, is that one of the things we want to drive are the behaviors that salespeople have to go through in order to sell a vehicle. So this would include paying salespeople for example, when someone comes in to the dealership and you get their name, their number, you have contact information, you enter them into your dealer management software, you would get paid. If you set up an appointment for someone to come in to the dealership, you would get paid. When they show, you would get paid. When you sell a vehicle, every vehicle, whether it's new or used, would have a flat associated with it. And where the salespeople picks up additional monies are through the process. So every time there's a demonstration drive, they get paid. Every time there's a proposal presented to the customer, they would get paid. If there's an appraisal and it's done, they would get paid. Now, in addition to that, what would happen is, based on minimum standards that we set in place, for example, the minimum number when it comes to people showing up for appointments would be 66.7%. In other words, the expectation is that for every 3 appointments made, 2 will show. We know that 1 will buy because we've tracked tens of thousands of appointments through our software. The other expectation is, when it comes to walk-ins, that the closing ratio would be at 35%. Demo drives, appraisals, proposals, anyone that's physically in the dealership, it should be at 80%. So they would get bonused at the end of the month if in fact they hit those numbers of 80%, 80%, 35%, 50%, etc. So the idea behind it is we're accomplishing a number of things. What we're doing is ensuring that the behaviors are actually carried out, the expectations. And we know that the more people do the process and actually have people on demo drives, do appraisals, we do proposals, the more vehicles that we're going to sell. So we know that this works because it's been proven. But the sad part of it is, as you pointed out, Jeff, is sometimes on an annual basis, dealers want to change something. Or new management comes into place, they want to try something different. So there's always change happening, but I think what we need to keep in mind is, what about the future? How are we going to get new people into the industry and make it comfortable for them, plus help them develop over time through compensating them in a manner that basically helps them continually learn, see their stats, and see how they can improve.
Terrific. Thanks for that input. Definitely, it's certainly something that's there. And I'm going to ask Stephen this, but before I do, Stephen, I was remiss. I didn't properly give you a plug. You're the CEO of, I don't know if it's SARR or SAR, which is Automotive and RV Retail Recruitment. And so again, thank you very much for joining us. And your opinion on, is it time to reinvent the compensation plans?
I do think so, and I do agree with John in some of the areas. One of the things I'd love to get with him on is how the HR team and how the payroll team would administer all those different levels of pay. And I have seen, the great thing is I have seen a similar pay structure within recruitment before, where the consultant gets an amount of money for generating a resume, gets an amount of money for presenting it to a client. But I do get the concept and the idea, and I do agree with him that I'm talking a little bit more from the sort of fixed operations side of it, where we tend to specialize a little bit more. But one of the most frustrating things with regards to the candidates that we talk to and the people that we present is the need for the dealership to change it when the person is being successful. The problem is when someone outdoes their targets on an annual basis, and then they go and sit down with their manager or the owner at the end of the year, and suddenly their pay plan has been changed to meet what they overachieved on rather than what it was the year before. That's why, as a recruiter, we see an awful lot of people reaching out to us in the first quarter and the first month of the new year, because again, they're frustrated in what they do, that they've now been in some ways they've been taken backwards because they've been successful. You know, they're being hurt for being successful rather than actually being applauded and allowed to make that money. Now, if they're achieving the target that they were given the year before, surely that was making a large amount of gross profit for the dealership. So from that point of view, there is a level where it needs to come. The other thing that needs to, I suppose, change a little bit is last week alone, I talked to 6-7 dealerships. Every single one had a different pay plan for every single position. The service advisor pay plan was different in every dealership. Some were based on, a bit like John said, they get an amount of money per RO flat rate hour written, and then bonuses based on top of that. Some was on GP, some was on net, some was on GP plus CSI. You know, some got a base salary and a very small bonus on top. And that was, you know, so if you've got a service department, you've got parts people, service advisors, technicians, again, HR must be going through when they're sitting down and doing pay plans and doing payroll, and that changes per person as well. You know, because they might try and win a candidate that they're on, so they're on a different pay plan from the person that's on beside them. So it can sometimes be a very confusing thing. And the biggest part of us when we talk to a client is trying to understand that, because to win a candidate, you have to understand what they're going to be paid to do that. So really, that's my 2 pence worth or 2 cents worth.
Very interesting that you brought up just the topic of in fixed ops. It isn't a heck of a lot different than in sales. And I always got a laugh about that. And I apologize for any dealer principals that are there. But the case that you said, when somebody becomes an overachiever, how somebody will look at them and say, gee, we've got to adjust this. But then when the manufacturer decides the next year they're changing the dealer incentive programs, and the dealers go, well, that's not right because I did over target. So
yeah.
And so now, Greg, you've been sitting there very, very patiently. Please give
That's
us,
okay. I'm just listening. You know, I just wanted to see how everybody is this morning. Good seeing you. You know, I spent 30 years in the US and 10 of them dedicated to AutoNation. You know, one thing I learned from Mike Jackson and Mike Maroney with AutoNation is people, process, and pay plans. You know, to John's point, you know, Drive Auto, they're already doing it. You know, John, 50,000, they're paying salespeople 50, they're paying F&I 60,000 base, and they're tasking them. And they're already doing that. They're tasking them. It's a different model. You know, when you look at that model, it's great, but it also cuts into your SG&A and it cuts into your profit, right? You got to have deep pockets and it has to be able to fund it. I think there's a hybrid balance in there. But what I would say about pay plans, and I've seen it from both sides as a director and now on the recruiting, if you're a dealer principal and you're trying to think about how do I keep my pay plans working, how do I keep my people engaged to drive top line revenue? You know, the pay plans have got to be realistic, achievable, and allow your salespeople, it doesn't matter whether it's in fixed or variable, to hit the numbers. And when I look at the inbound and outbound talking to people that are leaving dealerships and people that are coming into dealerships or people coming into OEM, it's always down to the pay plan. Can I hit this number? Can we drive the revenue? Can I get paid on both sides? And the dealer has to make margin. I mean, that's just how it is. That's life. But at the same time, I think you have to look at, in today's world, what's really happening. Very limited marketplace with jobs available. So there's some great talent out there, but in order to attract some great talent, you got to have a pay plan that allows them to achieve. One thing I like about the States, and you know, I'm a Canadian citizen, but back and forth, I see pay plans different parts of the country. The US always ties their pay plans, they lock it in to product count. So it's not just GP, it's also product count. So you need to be running, let's just use F&I at 1,200 per copy on the back and a 1.25 product count. And so in order to hit the levels, you got to be selling VSCs or prepaid maintenance. AutoNation, I'm in touch with them all the time. You've got to be 50% vehicle service contracts, 55% prepaid maintenance. Otherwise, you can't ring all the bells. So that also drives behavior, to John's point. You have to drive behavior with pay plans, but it's also got to be reasonable. Right. You can't say, hey, I got to be 70% vehicle service contracts in order to hit tier one. You got to let people make the money and you got to let them share in it. And you got to let everybody ring all the bells. Yes, you're going to take a little bit of profit margin dip, but again, you're driving top line revenue. You've got retention. And it's all about retention, right? It's all about retention, 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 retention. I need more people coming in the lane. I need to be doing more ROs, more people in the lane so I can maximize those dollars. And if you're not selling more and bringing more people in, so is it worth it to short people on the pay plans? I hear it every day. one thing I do like, I think if there's dealer principles on here, tie your pay plans to F&I products. Everybody's running VSC, right? All manufacturers say, what are they running? Vehicle service contracts, vehicle service contract. If you're on a menu, vehicle service contracts, prepaid maintenance, tire and wheel, gap, the core products. They're on the menu. And so how do we do that? How do we drive behavior? You spiff everybody down the line. Everybody down the line spiff. From the salespeople, they set it up properly, they get spiffed. Service, they flip it over, they get spiffed. F&I, everybody gets spiffed along the way to drive the behavior. So how do pay plans work in Montreal? The unit exists for retail employers? Good question. But when you look at it in its totality, you have to drive pay plans and you have to tie them into products. Otherwise, you're still selling rust, right? I mean, all cars have 10-year perforation. Why are we selling rust? It doesn't drive everybody back. All cars got a 10-year perforation. Everybody trades every 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Why? That's not a retention product, especially if your pay plans are based on gross profit. If it's just GP, well, everybody's going to default to First Canadian and spray and whatever they can sell in gross profit. But how does that sell the lane? How does that help you in the lane? How does that help you with retention? When's the last time anybody's used a rust module? I mean, I don't care whether it's spray or if it's electronic. You want to spiff people on vehicle service contracts, prepaid maintenance, and drive people in the lane. And I think that's, it'd be nice if everybody got a base salary and everybody got tasked. But I think on the big picture, why I just going to be hard to change people on that just because of there's not enough bread there to auto finance that. You know, you can't drive that kind of top line number in all the time to pay, you know, your SG&A is tough, but I think you can make it, and I've seen it and I hear it. You have to look at your pay plan dealer principals, GM, whoever's on the call and say, hey, are we allowing our people to make enough money? And are they really realistic? And let's tie them to what we want to drive, meaning you really want more people in the lane. We want more people in the lane, right? Natural traffic's down, internet traffic's up, but we need more people in the lane. So let's spiff everybody on products that drive people in the lane. And there's my retention piece on that one, you know. And that's the short version.
Well, thank you. You know, it's very interesting. You mentioned getting people in the lane. I'm going to go into dealership design, and I want to design in the service drive will go right through the showroom so the salespeople can pounce on customers. Ian, how about we move forward?
Well, there's a couple of questions there. So one of them was specifically around from Sandy about, you know, not having a draw and that people loved it. But also the question from Bill on what if I have a union service side or the whole place is unionized? I don't know if Montreal as a whole salesperson unionized, but if you have half of the house that's unionized, so that would be your fixed ops piece, and the salespeople are not. I worked at a dealer like that. How do you recommend dealers deal with that and from a compensation retention point? Anyone can speak to it.
You know, I don't have any background on the unions and how that works. You know, it's a difficult. I have no grounding in working with unions at a dealership. It is a different model. You know, with all unions, right? It can be difficult to get people motivated. You know, there's one thing about commission structures that are structured properly that drives behavior. I don't, you know, I'm answering that. I don't have an answer, but it's a great question, but I don't have the answer on unions, how that looks. You know, I don't know how that plays, but there has to be a way that the unions can be incentivized through behavior. You know, whether it's CSI, SSI, you know, there's got to be RO count. There's got to be a way.
Wow, the sales team was included. Interesting.
I think when you're moving over to retention, it's interesting to look at different ways to keep employees on rather than just making it all about money. I think yes, we're looking at pay plans, but money and how you retain people, of course, is a big factor. But when we work and when we look at things, there's 6 real factors why people stay within businesses. And I recently did a little survey on technicians, what was most important to them, whether it was the amount of money they're paid or the advancement within it. And it was about a 50-50 split, to be honest. The problem is sometimes with retention and with people, because they're good, they're turning hours and they're making the dealership money, then they've got no chance of moving forward within that dealership. Because why would you want to promote the best person that you have in your team, and then risk your revenues in doing that, not being able to find somebody that can replace them at the same level? So we get in certain levels within the dealership, people stay where they are when they really want to advance. Now, I'm not saying that they're right for advancement, and that would be down to actually whether they could do it or not. But rather than looking at just money, you got to look at what the challenge is. Some people are looking at location, if the business exists within that location, if they can drive the numbers they need to, and the traffic coming through the dealership. Got to look at advancement. And then number 4, what we look at is the money side of it. Again, the people that they work with, and this one will come into the current situation that we're in globally, the security of the job. How do you keep those people in those 6 key factors just around money? So I think retention, there's so many different other things to look at, but it could link into how the pay plans work as well.
And we did get a comment from Robert about Quebec specifically. It was impossible to pay on performance. They had to pay them hourly. It was the only way they could get it to done. And in that case, not only was the shop unionized, but also the salespeople were as well. And that's part of the reason why they couldn't open. Well, in Quebec, they don't open weekends anyway, but that was one of the challenges the dealer had.
Very interesting when you talk about Quebec. One thing I found with every manufacturer is ever with the Montreal area stores, boy, they were always amongst the top performers in the country. And we always viewed it as part of that reason. It's not because they were that good or Quebecers were more prone to buying things, but because there was less hours to shop and people put value in their own time in buying cars.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to work with a Mercedes store in Montreal. Most of their deals are done at lunchtime. And they're a very high performing store. So, I mean, the owner was not happy to the point where he sold the store and since bought a store in Ontario because it really pissed him off that he couldn't open on weekends. That was a waste of time and money, but the store always performed very well, and I think still does. So, go ahead.
Sorry, and I was going to just echo what Stephen said. On the recruiting side, and we hear it every day. What are people really looking for? Well, they're looking for culture, right? They're looking for a great culture, a nice, fun place to work. I can tell you in automotive, they're looking for a great store, a good GM, just a kind, fun place to work. And then number 2, they go to pay plan. We all need money. It's not a mystery, right? And so the combination is a great, fun place to work with a great pay plan. And that's really automotive people, what they're looking for. And I see John bobbing his head. It's so true, so many of us, I mean, today, if I went back in the dealership, yes, I want to make money. I want a good pay plan that's reachable because I'm a salesman. But at the same time, I'm looking for a fun GM and a fun culture and a good atmosphere, but it always drives with when I'm talking to clients or we're talking with clients. I just finished a search with Cox Automotive with dealer.com and put a couple of people in BC in dealer.com. And number 1 question out of the candidates, what's it like to work there? Is it fun? Am I going to have a good time? Are they going to micromanage me? It's always about that. And then of course, what's it pay? I mean, everybody wants the same thing, right? We all want to work someplace where we're having a great time, we're having fun, and we're making some money so we can turn that into whatever goods and services, what we want. So I think when you're looking at pay plans, again, just to circle back, and people on the phone that are maybe struggling with pay plans, is how much can I give away without hurting us? And how much can I, when you're looking at EBITDA and you're driving bottom line and you're looking at goals, how much can we give away without killing us to make everybody happy? Number one. And number two, look at the culture in itself. When you're talking retention, keeping employees, are we doing the right things? Are they happy? Are we happy on the showroom floor? John, I think anybody in Barrie, people that have been in hundreds and hundreds of dealerships, it's so funny when you go to, and I'll just use Fort Lauderdale 441 just for argument's sake, or downtown Toronto. When you go from dealership to dealership to dealership, and you go in, some dealerships you walk in and they greet you and, hey, good to see you, good morning, and how are you? And you can feel it from the top down. Everybody, there's a snap in the dealership. And then other places you can't find a soul. Nobody says hi to you. I mean, is there anybody working here? It's right. I mean, you could get two Honda dealers, one completely different. That's top down. We know that. But take that great top-down attitude and combine that with a fantastic pay plan. That's a winning formula. And you look at Sonic and you look at Go and Drive and just everybody that has that. It's a winning formula. But it all starts with people. Sorry, John, go ahead. Yep.
No, it does. It does. I agree 100%. And, going back to culture and having a dealership where people are having fun, selling a lot of cars, takes me back when I was managing a dealership in the GTA. And lo and behold, we had a pay plan that was, how should we say, fair. And then what happened, of course, is by building the right team, having the right processes in place, and everybody singing from the same songbook, we ended up doubling the volume of vehicles sold and doubling the gross profit per unit. Guess what happened after that? The dealer principal and the vice president called me in and said, your people are making way too much money.
I never understood that. I never understood that. If they're making too much money, doesn't that mean they're making?
Exactly.
The problem though that comes in, and Dave is here. I know he's a pretty fair guy and he runs a pretty strong dealership. But you have to look at percentages of money being paid out, and you have your business model built on those percentages. And when they're off, they're off. And the guy who's got the millions on the line trying to make sure the bank's paid and the OEM's paid and all that kind of stuff, he's got to protect his money too. So I get it both ways. I totally get it. You're knocking it out of the park, you should get paid, but at some point there also has to be a healthy relationship between the employees and the dealer principal and the ownership of the place, right? It can't just be, man, like I've been in places where we had F&I people where the salespeople were front loading the deals on the floor, and F&I was making 250 each in the back end. Well, that wasn't fair. That's not how it should be set up. But they had balanced their pay plan, and so guess what? When it got changed, they all got upset, and it wasn't fair, and it was all whatever. But it needed to be balanced out so it was a healthy relationship between them. So it does have to be both ways. I think we can probably all see that.
So to that point, most pay plans have a high level of commission or performance. Is there still value in it being a high level performance based? I mean, maybe as you look at the change in demographics of people working in dealerships, more the younger demographic coming into the business, maybe that's not the right structure. What do you think on that, Greg?
Well, you know, all of these are great questions. You know, it's just, can you change behavior of a dealership, right? I mean, I look at Sonic and I look at AutoNation because I was dedicated to them in pay plans. You know, are they going to change it to where everybody's making a decent base and a shorter amount of commission? Is the commission structure for salespeople correct? I mean, should we drive more just commissions, and is that still the right model? I don't know if it's going to change in our time. I think there's going to be a hybrid of it. I think the jury's still out paying flat salaries to salespeople and F&I people, whether that's going to drive more product. I can tell you just by talking with the people that drive that even though they're paying good salaries, you're getting a different type of person that's coming in, but they're not selling as much product and they're not grossing as much. So because now you're really, it's a nice, I'm searching for the word where, you know, you're not an order taker, but it's a nice sort of consultative based sale, but gross profits going down. And so what does dealer need, right? The margins are so tight. We need to maximize gross when we need to maximize F&I products in order to make up for that shortness in margin. So you still need good salespeople, right? Salespeople are still at a value, and great salespeople respond to great commissions.
Well, and that's, I think you have a good point there, Greg. And, you know, I think if the dealer has a healthy mix of product, then we're going to use F&I because you touched on that, driving people into the drive. I think it's a good example where the problem you have is they go to the high grossing product. So for example, they'll go sell an undercoat or a warranty or whatever the case may be and make some reasonable money to actually add to their bottom line and add to their per copy gross and the rest of it. But really what the dealer needs is the dealer needs 4 tires to be sold on that so that they come back. But if they sell 4 tires, the dealership makes $120, and what are they going to spiff F&I on that? Like,
yeah,
so
I mean,
that whole thing is skewed. So and sorry, just to support you a little bit.
Yeah.
To make it that tires are a counter, whatever that is. And so they have to sell X number of tires to get people back into the drive so that they do the winter switchovers and all kinds of things that are important to a dealership. Then that is just a fact of their pay plan, and they can add warranties all they want after they've sold the tires.
Yeah, and I think what happens too, I mean, you have to have, back to everybody singing off the same song sheet. You know, if you look at it and everything's about retention and everybody's talking about retention and everybody's singing the same song sheet, everybody needs to be, you know, compensated on the retention products in order for the entire dealership to breathe the retention model. So if it really is all about retention, right? Driving people into the lane, driving people through the front door, driving people, keeping them in your dealership, making them happy, of course, having a great experience and all that. But everybody has to have that same model in their mind, and it can't be siloed in the pay plans. So it all has to drive towards that type of retention pay plan. And I think if there's any kind of thing you can talk about besides a great culture and people being happy, we all want that. But at a dealership level, I think everybody needs to have that retention-based mindset where we're all thinking about the same thing. And then it all needs to be geared towards what are the great products that are great for the consumer, great OEM products that also drive people back in your lane. And that's where we need them. We need them all in your lane, and we need them, you know, on the books as long as we can. So I don't think there's a magic bullet in the pay plans. I think everybody's got a great point on the pay plans, but I do believe that it all has to be geared towards retention and dealer principles. You can try to give up as much as you can without, you know, everybody's got to make a living, and it's difficult to run a dealership. and so there's a lot of working parts to it. It's not easy. It's a complicated subject matter, but there is an answer.
But I wonder, just to your point, Greg, I wonder how many people in the dealership know the value of retention.
Well, that comes from the top down. I can only speak from AutoNation and Sonnet and my years there. They live and breathe it. They talk it all the time. I mean, when Kevin Westfall was the vice president of AutoNation, and we always talk people, process, pay plan, the 3 Ps. The right people doing the right process with the right pay plans. And it's always retention, 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 retention. I mean, from morning to night, the GSMs talk it, the GM talk it. And then not only do they talk it, they tie pay plans to retention products. So you get paid to sell retention products. And then service, the number one reason why people leave the service lane, this was an Epsilon report. The number one reason people leave the service lane and go somewhere else, it's not because of satisfaction. It's not because of the price. It's tires. It's tires. So if I need some 255 40R 18s, where do I think of? And I'm going to use the states: NTW, Tire Kingdom, Costco, Tire Hut, Goodyear. And then when you get in there, they go, hey, by the way, we're selling, buy 3, get 1 free. And also, do you know we do brake pads, batteries, tires? By the way, we can do an LOF and get you a filter. Now they're gone. Now, The only reason you need them is for warranty work. So that's why you see that's why you see AutoNation, Penske, Group 1, all of them in the lane, good, better, best tire selections as big as Tire Kingdom. Because they know, but the point is everybody drinks that Kool-Aid. So the service manager is always talking about, hey, tires. Ford spiffs on brake pads, batteries, tires through their Ford, right through their service account. Brake pads, batteries, tires on the service advisors. Everybody's brake pads, batteries, tires. Everybody drinks that Kool-Aid. Yes, you're making no money in tires. There's no margin in it, but it's the retention. And so in its totality, it's a $5 bill here. It's a $6 bill here. It's a $3 bill here. It's $4 for this. It's $5 for this. But in its totality, it adds up and everybody sings off that same song sheet. So I've been exposed to that and it works. And it's just, how do you get everybody going?
We talk about retaining customers, and I certainly appreciate that because we need it. But what about retaining employees?
Yeah.
In particular, in the sales department.
Yeah. Well, listen, are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking.
I think that's the $1 million question. I think we'd all be on Jimmy Kimmel if we could have, but listen, I think happy people, this is my 36th year. The longest place I stayed was 8 years at Tropical Chevrolet in Miami, and then 9 years Safeguard in Fort Lauderdale, and then back into Canada. But I was really happy there. I can tell you, I could have made more money somewhere else, but I tell you what, I was really happy. It was a good, fair pay plan. The staff retention and salespeople, I think you can directly correlate that to happiness. Are they happy in their job? Are they happy with their managers? Are they happy with the GM? Are they happy with the dealership in its totality? And are they making a decent living? But I think if somebody said to me, hey, Greg, would you jump from Safeguard to JM&A to make $20,000 more? I'd say no, because I was happy. And that's, I think a lot of it with salespeople is, as Stephen alluded to back earlier, are they happy? Are they being treated well? Do they feel important? Do they feel like, they're needed in that dealership? This is age-old question. is there somebody in the sales, is the sales manager just coming by, patting them on the back? Hey, I know you only did 6 units, but you did a great job, and appreciate what you're doing. Are people getting that reinforcement that they need? And I can tell you from working in a lot of dealerships, you don't get it. They're either on an app, they're on vAuto, and they're talking and they're in the zone and they're not talking to people, and the sales managers aren't going around and shaking hands and kissing babies and telling the people that, hey, I know it's tough and I appreciate what you're doing. And I think that will go a long way in retention. It's not just about pay plans, to Stephen's point.
Agreed.
Stephen, did you have any thoughts on that?
Sorry?
Say again, Ian?
Can't hear you.
Stephen.
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Sorry, I couldn't hear you, so I didn't know you were directing at me. No, I suppose one of the things that can really help as well is, to discuss. I think we mentioned the last time we had a call, or last time I was on a call, we talked about the onboarding of new people, starting from the recruiting, starting from the point where you actually create the job requisition and how you're going to keep those people in, and transparency at interview on the pay packet, so that you get the questions and the and the people that you're interviewing can give you a lot of pointers on what they see and what they're looking for, and that can help you develop your pay plan. So, if you're transparent on how your pay plan works up front at the point when you're, starting that onboarding, which is the interviewing stage, then I think that could help not only to realign them to what the current people are looking for, but also can make it stronger in the process going forward and help with retention at the back end, because they take the job understanding where it is.
Yeah. We also had a couple comments from Bill Harvey here, and also from Robert. Robert built a compensation plan on progressive profit based on units sold and guaranteed minimum. So that way it drove the employees to build a book of business. And then Bill said, other than pay plan carrot, which is a weak tactic, why don't we refer to retention as selling friends and family? How does fixed ops friend the variable ops 6-figure odometer? Most retailers don't have this strategy. So I'm not sure if, Stephen, if you could speak at all to fixed ops strategy. I know getting technicians is difficult these days, and obviously retaining them is probably not as big an issue, but if you lose one, it's hard to find one. So what's your recommendation on that side from a pay plan perspective?
Sorry, I was just reading the question because you broke up a little bit. So it's just
yeah. I got lost bouncing off the satellite.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Whichever one it is.
It's a must problem. He's interfering.
You're talking about friend to the variable side. Oh, here
sorry, I'm struggling thingy with regards to what the question was about. But I think, on the retention side, the friends and family, the growth side, a lot of that link, maybe I'm going down the wrong route here, so correct me, but a lot of that is linked on the technician side to the team that they work with, the service advisor, because really the service advisor is responsible for generating that and building that pay plan and building that service plan out with the client itself. It depends on the size of the dealership, the technician, and their involvement with the customer, and rolling that out. So, I think the focus should be really on the service advisor and what they're bringing, and working with the team and how that work's been dispatched into the team. Because again, that's another area that we could go down a rabbit hole on. But hopefully that gives some sort of idea. But still working the question.
Well, and that's a bit of a tough one too, because when you have an amazing technician that's, he's working 3 hoists and he's got it figured out and he's generating 30 hours a day and everything is just rocking it. And then his back starts to hurt and his feet are bad. And he comes to his GM or his manager and says, hey, I want to move into a different position. And you say to him, okay, are you prepared to take a $50,000 pay cut to do something else? Because he's been such a rock star, she's been such a rock star in the back, generating that out. And now you're going to give him a pay cut to move into management. And that goes with some salespeople in some sales departments too, is they're rocking it out and they're doing everything they should be doing. And then all of a sudden they want to move up or they want to do something different. And now you got to give them a pay cut to move them into management. And so those are always tough people to manage. And yes, they're the best of the best and the top performers and all the rest of it. And you'd like to keep them on your team, but you've backed yourself into a bit of a corner sometimes too.
I want to just interject here. This is some great stuff. We generally try to keep our show on time because everybody's busy. But I have a final question I'd like to present to our guests. And here's the thing: all of you deal directly with both sides of this discussion. You know, I mean, Stephen, you're out there recruiting for dealerships. That means for the dealers. Greg, same thing. Obviously, John, you've got to get the dealer on board before you can get your program into there. However, you're also dealing with the staff, with the people that are getting paid, etc. Where is the middle ground? Does somebody actually believe that? You got a dealer that's on the hook. You know, even a small dealer's on the hook for $10 or $12 million in combined debt and equity, etc. Salespeople have to pay the bills. They have to have a life. And what's your recommendation to get both sides of the middle so somebody understands that for this millions of dollars, and some of the big dealers are $100 million, and they get a return. If they're happy at a return of 6%, they're ecstatic, and the average is about 3%. How do you get the staff to understand that, but the dealer who doesn't have to worry about his own personal lives or her own personal lives, expenses, and etc.? How do you create the middle ground? And we only have a couple of minutes, so I'll ask John that because he hasn't spoken much recently.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the issue of transparency. I always felt that when you're bringing people on board and you explain compensation plans, how they've come about, why they've come about, and basically explain to them, and not necessarily, you know, in the talk that an accountant might, but you explain to them where, why, how. I believe that you can get buy-in as long as it's fair.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if you froze there, John, because you stopped to listen, but then I saw your chin move. How about yourself, Stephen?
I totally agree. Transparency, let it go up front, but also consider the idea of profit share. You know, you get a lot of companies who every person in the building gets, if the company's successful at the end of the year, you know, everybody makes a small amount of profit. So, you know, we get it with investors who buy shares. If the company's successful, then they make a dividend off the back of it. Get somebody to put in place something where maybe it won't work for the big corporates, but they don't tend to be where we target anyway. But the smaller, you know, not the smaller, but the more family-based, you know, 1 to 3 to 10 rooftops, let everybody profit from success because you'll get long-term buying.
Terrific, thank you. Now, Greg, your point, your take on this too, but I also, the U.S., it's my understanding you deal there more or a lot. Is there not a more of an instance where it's almost an employee-owned operation?
Well, I'm really in Canada now more, but I just keep in touch. Yeah, I just keep in touch. You know, these are, how many dealers are willing to give people profit sharing in there? I don't know if it would be nice. It would be a nice thing if a dealer principal, to Stephen's point, a 1 to 3 point or a 5 to 10 point would offer that. But I have not found that yet in my lifetime. the dealer's willing to do that. I think, you know, when this whole compensation talk is, I think it really all starts with the generosity of the dealer principal. I mean, some dealer principals have, you know, a lot more generous than others. Some people, it's still to this day, as we see out there, they don't care if they're turning and burning. That model is still a broken model, and they're still doing it, and they don't care.
Well,
How do
maybe,
you, I mean, it's out there, right? Everybody, John, you're nodding your head. I mean,
Yeah.
how many dealers are still turning and burning? All of us have compassion for everybody, the men and women working in the field, because it's not an easy gig, right? Cars is not an easy
Dave or
gig.
someone who's a dealer principal, someone else. I mean, if Dave wants to volunteer to talk from a dealer perspective.
But what I was going to say was, I think it really depends on from the top down, you know, people, everybody's different, right? I don't have the answer to that, how you change behavior. I think it's just a matter of, you know, dealer principals, people got to run a business. You know, there's fixed costs, there's overhead, there's only so much you can squeeze out, you know.
You have any thoughts, Dave?
Well, yeah, I guess. You know, one of the mentions was profit sharing. What about loss sharing? If you're a stock market investor and company makes money, you share in the profit. But if the company loses money, you share in the loss. So that's
it's a great idea. The thing
you know, I
is,
mean, I'm just saying, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm just saying, I think respect, transparency, and proper pay plan are probably the three most important attributes. The only people that think you're paying too much are your competitors, the other dealers. You know, if you're scooping their staff, if you're taking their staff, they probably think you're paying too much. If you're not paying enough, well, you obviously know that too, because you're always turning over people. You know, I mean, the only asset I think that we have in a dealership is people. And I certainly learned my lesson on that. I had the #1 salesman in our Western Canada for 16 years, go down a year ago. And had another 14-year salesman leave. So 2 of them left long-term disability and will never return. Interesting lesson. You know, I have lots of long-term employees. We have lots of people that have been here 10, 15 years. And I think the transparency, the respect, and the fair pay plan, you know, every market's different. Every area is different. You know, some people tell me I pay too high a percentage of what, you know? I mean, it's everybody thinks, you know, the percentage is the ticket. I think having your employees buy in, and I think the respect, and I don't know. I'm tuning in to find out, hey, what's the silver bullet? Obviously there isn't one, you know. I mean, what's the proper pay plan? I don't know. Nobody knows the proper pay plan. I mean, obviously it's a concern for me. I think I'm the only dealer on this call. So what does that tell you?
You know, it's, I have to say though, good point, Dave. And, you know, the key is truly this transparency where I think, and I know Dave, you built that because I've known you a long time, but where people, the dealership and the staff build this symbiosis or whatever the term is, they get into this thing together. And I find the most successful places are where the dealer understands the staff and the staff understands the dealer and everybody understands their place. And if somebody's got nothing at risk, it's a bigger deal than somebody's got a lot at, it's a smaller deal than if somebody's got a lot at risk. But everybody's got to understand each other because everything is at its own level. Everybody, thank you so much for your input today. We have our time that we want everybody to spend there. Please reach out to Ian or myself for any questions, and we're happy to connect you with any of our guests. As we've mentioned before, last year we had our vendors speak every week. We had a vendor presenting their wares on Fridays, and we've gone to a new format, which is we're going to have 3 vendors at least on a show, and they'll be less frequent, but it'll give them an opportunity to request that. And we have some shows that we are working on at the moment, which includes the lead show, the creating lead show, the need a job show, matchmaking show. So Greg and Stephen will reach out to you there. Also a looking for staff show, Dave. And of course, everybody will connect there. Mind you, Dave, we can't really have you as a vendor because you're just looking for your little beautiful part of the
little world.
Your little part of the world. We've got a training show coming up. So John, your turn. Marketing show and social media shows. So we'll please reach out to us. The email is ianandjeff@autohubshow.com for any interests. I think we may start looking at some of these TV shows on that where you can get a mug.
Nice.
There you go. Yeah, the AutoHub mug. They're very rare, and they're extremely rare right now. Trust me.
That's a unicorn.
Exactly. So
used ones right now, right?
we do. I think they're from Starbucks, but sorry, go ahead.
No, I thought I saw the AutoHub mug on eBay this morning.
Oh, better buy it. There's an auto group in the States called AutoHub. Please join us next Monday, for Investing in Your Future in Automotive, where this is going to work for everybody from staff right up to potentially for dealer principals looking to expanding. We have two fine gentlemen joining us from the States who are investment advisors, and also have Fareed Ahmad is coming from Dealer Solutions and a whole bunch of other corporations, including their new venture capital company. So please join us next Monday. Before we're done, Ian, any further comments or any guests?
Yeah, we may also have Lisa from Bank of America. She was supposed to be on the show at the end of last year. Her brother got COVID, so we're not sure 100%, but she's very interested in talking to dealers specifically around finance. And she is a dealer finance expert for Bank of America in the US. But if you're looking for creative financing, she's a very interesting lady. Hopefully we'll have her on that show as well.
Terrific.
Yeah, that's
Any
it.
final comments, Ian?
No, great show. Obviously, we're looking for that silver bullet too, but I think it's really a question of making decisions based on a number of factors. And I think the missing piece that I didn't hear that much was maybe being more creative with each individual staff member or team and saying, listen, what's going to motivate this team of people? Where it may not be money, it may be other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. It was fun.
Terrific. Have a fabulous week, a safe week, and may all the occurrences in the news run away so we can focus on living life.
Isn't that the truth?
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks again.